Hey y'all, what's going on? Today I am going to be building a crosscut sled for my table saw. I'm going to do my best to keep the camera rolling the entire time and get it all in one take. And then I'll jump in and I'll talk whenever I need to. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this. Now, as you can see, I've already taken 2 pieces of plywood and I've glued them together here. So it just makes a full 1.5 inch thick piece of plywood. I got one short one and one long one. I'm going to clean these up now, and these are going to be the rear fence and the front fence on this crosscut sled. So let's clean those up now. Okay, so what I just did was cut down this piece of hard maple to roughly the length that I needed. Basically what I need to do is take any kind of hardwood, but for this I'm using hard maple, and I need to make it the exact width and depth of these miter slots. And these are going to be glued and screwed to the bottom side of our piece of plywood, and that will basically hold our crosscut sled in place while we're using it. So I've got to figure out what the width and the depth of this miter slot is and cut these pieces to size. I'll do that now. Alright, so now with my runners made and they fit perfectly on here, I need to secure them to the actual plywood themselves. So let me see what I need to do here. Get the runners in place, and they sit just below the edge of the miter slot, so I need to raise them up. So in order to do that, I'm going to put some washers inside the miter slot, and I'll raise them up so that they can touch the bottom of this panel, and then I can drive some screws down into it from the top. So that's what I'll do next.
Unfortunately, at this point in the video, the Jimmy that you're watching right now decided to just stop addressing the camera altogether. So you're going to be left with voiceover Jimmy for the remainder of this video. What you see me doing right now is marking out the lines and marking out the holes of where each of my screws are going to go. I need to do this ahead of time to make sure that I don't miss the runners that are below the sled. First, need to come through with a Forstner bit and create countersink holes for each one of my screws. This will make sure that the screw head stays beneath the surface of the sled. I'll then come back with a regular drill bit and countersink all my holes. That way I don't split those hardwood runners underneath. And then finally, I'll come through and drive in all my screws. With my runners securely in place and the ends trimmed off, I can now start working on my fences. Now, I cut these pretty square and I don't want to have those jagged pointy edges sticking out at me. So I'm going to go ahead and trim those off at a 45-degree angle on each end, and that will just make for a much cleaner look, and I won't have to worry about catching those corners on anything. And with those ends trimmed up, I can put it in its final spot, clamp it down to secure it, and then once I flip this board over, I can go ahead and drive my screws in, and that will hold it in its final position. Now, did any of you catch the mistake that I just made? This little screw right here, it should not be there. That screw actually falls directly in line with the path that the blade is going to take. So I do not want that blade and that screw to be interacting at all. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that screw. The rest of these screws should hold it in place just fine. And glad that I noticed that so we could avoid a disaster. Now I can start putting on my rear fence. In order to do this, I'll go ahead and secure it in place with some clamps, and I will drive in one single screw on one end of it. This screw will act as a pivot point so I can make minor adjustments and get that fence as square as possible to the blade. I make my first cut through the crosscut sled and I stop just shy of that rear fence. Now I can turn the saw off, get a square, and start to square up that fence to the blade. Once I am satisfied with the position of the fence, I can go ahead and clamp that opposite end to secure it in place, and then I'll just drive one more screw into that end right there. Now, I didn't show this, but I did actually drive in a bunch of other screws along the bottom of that fence, making sure I was not in line with the blade. But that was done, and now I'm just applying some paste wax, and this will just help it glide nice and smoothly over my table saw.
So there you have it. I now have a crosscut sled for my table saw. I've been wanting to build this for a long time, and the project that I'm working on really calls for it, so it gave me an excuse to actually build it. This one is super simple. There's a lot of complex ones out there on YouTube that you can look up and make, but I just wanted to make one super simple for my first one. I might add some, complex parts to it at some point, but for now, this is all I need to make some straight square cuts and a nice deep sled here, so I can use some bigger pieces on here as well. It was fun to make. It only took a couple hours. So if you don't have a crosscut sled, definitely make one for your table saw. It is not that hard to do. It's not that expensive. All in all, I probably spent 50 bucks on material. And you might have that laying around your shop. So go out and do it. Hey, if you haven't, hit subscribe on this video on my channel. I'd really love to have you subscribe to my channel. I plan on bringing out more videos as often as I can. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all those things. And go check me out on Instagram too. Have a good one.